He signed off at 2:14 under a city that never sleeps. Then the tunnel swallowed the minute. Years later, the shift book shows 2:14 twice, two hands, two pressures, while a rusted hasp sits newly replaced and a signal cabinet coughs up a cassette no one logged. If clean copies are mercy, why does the paper keep choosing the same sec? The tunnel shift book. The night the southbound track hummed like a tired hymn, the city was above us pretending to be dry. Down here the ceiling wept in places it swore it didn't, and the ballast gleamed like wet teeth. The shift book lived in a steel locker at Station K, the kind with a padlock scar where a hasp used to be. On a page dated February 3rd, 2011, the minute 2:14 appeared twice. Once in a hurried, narrow hand that bit the paper, once in a wider, careful script that smoothed the bite away. The name on both lines was the same, R. Calder. And we had all learned to Roddy Calder ran nights when the tunnels were most themselves. He carried a 3-cell flashlight like a priest carries a book. At 01:58, he called in a miner arcing at insulator box 7. At 02:09, he keyed his mic and said, "Hold westbound, I'm going in." At 3:03, the board showed a clear. The logbook recorded 2:14. Fault isolated, box sealed, initialed RC. Roddy didn't walk out. When the authority finally let me see the locker, the hasp was new and the screws too shiny, each with a washer like a halo around a decision. The supervisor handed me a photocopy of the page and called it the official record. Photocopies are good at making paper sound reasonable. They're bad at telling you where a hand pressed so hard it changed the fibers. I asked for the original. He said originals were compiled into a clean set after incidents. Clean is a comforting word. It also means someone decided which smudges were allowed to exist. The signal room was a steel box inside a stone throat. The air tasted like pennies and old static. In Cabinet 3, behind a panel tight with slotted screws, a little shelf nobody inventoried held an orange micro cassette with a cracked label, K-Night, and a date. The shelf dust was broken by one clean rectangle where something else had lived and left. I set the tape in a pocket recorder whose speaker buzzed like a bee under a jar and pressed play. It caught the tunnel the way your ear does, distant wind that is train, then a human breath settling into work. At 2:12 a.m., metal ticked against metal, Roddy's light tapping a bolt. At 2:13:41, a mutter. Insulator, burnt. A sharp inhale, then a thud that belonged to the door of box 7. At 2:14:3, he said, "Sealing." And the latch clacked once, then twice, like a promise being reconsidered. The hiss that followed wasn't steam. It was tape hearing fear. I brought the shift book into the equipment alcove and laid a thin sheet of vellum over the 2:14 line. Side shading is a kind of generosity. It lets pressure speak after ink has been made polite. 2 grooves rose. The deeper groove had a tiny hesitation above the one, a dot made by a hand that stopped and regripped. The lighter groove flowed without stopping, a classroom script that made the minute look like it had never argued with itself. A retired dispatcher named Lena met me after her physical therapy, a cane, a laugh, and a memory for bad nights. "We were told to reflect the last safe condition," she said, like an oath she'd quit but still wore. If he called sealed, the book had to hold sealed, even if he didn't get to finish the latch. "Who told you that?" I asked. "A guy from the compliance office," she said. "He liked clean copies." "For the investigators," he said. "For the lawyers." He said records are bones. you set them straight. The signal crew chief, a man who'd survived by pretending iron has manners, took me to Box 7. We walked the catwalk past a century of drips. The box door had been swapped since, the paint just a shade too honest, the hinge too eager. But the stone lintel held a memory in rust where the old hinge had drooled. 2 streaks, one long, one short, like a tally. On the deck plate below, a crescent of black where a latch had once kissed metal too hard. We don't think of doors as witnesses, but they keep the minute. Roddy's brother, Matt, kept a shoebox he didn't bring to funerals. Inside, a yellowed safety briefing, a patch with the line logo, a graphite pencil stub with tooth marks too far up to be from writing. He bit it when he needed to think and felt stupid doing it, Matt said, and smiled like a veteran of a private war. I asked to borrow the pencil. Back at the locker, I shaded the margin again, this time listening to the tape on loop. Ceiling, clack, clack. The deeper groove finished the 4 like a man moving while speaking. The lighter groove finished the 4th, like a man redrawing a night in daylight. We pulled the radio logs. At 2:14:27, Roddy's unit pinged no GPS. Tunnels eat satellites for breakfast, but the repeater usually gives you a blink. At 2:16:10, control marked contact lost, likely dead zone. At 2:20:50 a.m., another tech cleared the block. Fault appears isolated. The fairness of the copy requires a witness you can feed to a form. The minute got his initials whether he finished it or not. I asked compliance for their clean set. They offered a binder with tabs and a smell like an office that never sees dirt. The 2:14 entry was typed. At the bottom, a stamped note. Compiled for review, discrepancies normalized. It takes a particular courage to write a sentence that beautiful about a thing that breaks you. At a small public meeting held in a room whose walls remember zoning fights and PTA votes, I played the tape. The breath, the clack, the second clack that sounds like a thought catching its heel on a stair. I set the shaded vellum on an overhead projector like a teacher. The grooves rose on the screen like riverbeds in a drought. I didn't accuse the authority of malice. I accused them of mercy. Mercy, badly applied, turns into a story that fails the only person it owes. Policy changes are usually a winter sport, slow, cold, requiring layers. This one moved like a summer storm. Originals would be sealed in clear sleeves with sign-out tags. Clean copies would be watermarked training, not record. Minutes would not be normalized. They would be annotated, claimed, attempted, cut short. And the compliance officer who loved bones learned to love margins with names. Before I left, the crew chief handed me a thing from a bin. Of things that don't fit forms. The old hinge pin of Box 7, pitted, bent by a degree you wouldn't notice unless you wanted to. We found it when we swapped the door, he said. Kept it because... He didn't finish. People down here don't often finish sentences. The train does it for them. I took the pin outside at dawn. The city above us wasn't pretending to be dry anymore. It gleamed honestly. I held the pin up and let it catch the light. It wasn't evidence. It was a minute you could touch. It said what the tape said and what the groove said. He tried to close the night, and the night, being night, took its time closing back. The shift book keeps both hands now. They did not erase the heavy groove. They boxed it with a note and a date, and when a new kid signs 214 for anything, he feels the pressure under his pen like a pulse from a deeper artery. Clean copies still exist. We need them for clarity, for training, for after. But in the locker, a page that learned to hold two truths lies under plastic, and the hasp, older now by a year of being touched, remembers which one bit first.